Which part of the sermon did you say struck you the most?
I would say the part that really hit me most was there's so much out there that can turn you to the left or to the right. You know, music is one of the most powerful things. As musicians, right, we have to discipline ourselves. We are not just there to play the instruments, but we are there to also the music backed by the word. That takes you into a whole different realm.
Hello there. Welcome to another episode of Living the Sermon podcast, where we dive into meaningful conversations about our faith, relationships, and personal growth. I'm your host, Daniel Lai, and I'm delighted to have you join us. Today, we have a special guest. He is a great musician. He's a student too, and I call him Maestro because he's multi-talented. He's going to be sharing with us as someone that has made a significant impact on his life. Welcome, William.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. I'm glad that you made it. Can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is William. Like you said, I'm a student. I'm a musician. I'll be going to college in the fall. I'll be a freshman. I'm just so happy to be here. Something I'm very passionate about. I'm happy to be here.
Which college are you planning on going to?
Pennsylvania State University.
Oh, great.
Yes.
What do you intend to study?
Business finance.
Why business finance?
Well, I'm a big numbers person. I love math. I love when you give me a math problem, like just the way my mind works, like, okay, I need to figure out how can I get to this answer? How can I do this? Like, I love exploring things with numbers. So that's why I want to go into finance.
Awesome. And I know you're going to do well because you're a smart guy. Thank you so much for all you do in the house of God. I really cherish you so much. Young but vibrant in the Lord. Continue to do what you do. And I know when you get to college, you're going to be doing exploits. Do you mind sharing your favorite Bible verse?
Yeah, so my favorite Bible verse will be 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 10.
Why that verse?
So I'll say the verse because it's been in my head so much. It says, by the grace of God, I am what I am, and his grace to me was not without effect. No, I worked harder than them all. Yet not I, but the grace of God that was with me. And that verse has just been in my head so much. I love that verse because I really think it's a call to action. Like talking about how, yes, working hard, right? We should all be working hard. Working hard is important. Yet when we are working hard, it's not us that is doing the hard work. It is God working through us. So as we are putting our all effort in, God is also using us to do exploits. And I think that verse was so powerful.
Amazing verse. Say the verse again.
1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 10. By the grace of God, I am what I am. And his grace to me was not without effect. No, I worked harder than them all. Yet not I, but the grace of God that was with me.
Thank you for sharing that verse. So I know you've been, a keyboard player. You taught yourself how to play and you've been playing for a while. How long have you been playing the keyboard?
So I started, it's a funny story actually how I learned to play keyboard. So originally when we were moving into our first house, the lady that was selling the house, she had an old grand piano. This was when I was about maybe 4 or 5 years old. Wow. I still remember this story. My mom tells me all the time. And when the lady was selling the house, she had a grand piano. And she was like, oh, all my kids have gone off to college. I don't have anybody to play the keyboard. The grand piano is just here. So if you wanted, you can take the grand piano. And as she was talking, my parents were talking to the lady that was selling the house. Little me was, just running around trying to look at stuff in the house. I started touching the keyboard and the lady noticed it. And she was like, no, there's something in your son. So you take the keyboard. And that keyboard it's still in our house today.
Wow.
That keyboard been there. Growing up, that's the keyboard I played all the time practicing. So, yeah.
And do you transpose?
No.
Wow.
No, don't transpose.
You're an amazing keyboardist. I've seen you play and I really like how you are able to, flow. Sometimes you hear the key and you are able to tell without even hitting the note. And that's amazing, skill set to have. I know you've been hearing a number of sermons because, of course, if you play, you're a musician who stays in church. right? You do hear and listen to a number of sermons. And I believe that I know you always carry your Bible. Is there any sermon that you've heard in recent years or in the past that has had a significant impact on you?
Yes, I will say among the number of sermons, every Sunday there's a different sermon. We hear the word of God. But the sermon that has impacted me most, I would say, is 31st Night Sermon.
Who preached that sermon?
Pastor Kofi Usubachi.
Where were you then?
So that night, after we had finished our ministration, I'd gone to sit in the back, because I was looking at some of the sound and making sure everything was good. And as Pastor Kofi started preaching, I was like, oh, this sermon is going to be deep. Let me really tune into this one. Normally, sometimes, we all do it. It happens to all of us. Sometimes we'll go to church, we'll listen to a sermon, and it's like in ear, one out the other,
That's right. That's right.
But this sermon, I was like, let me tune into this one and really catch something here. That I'm so glad I did, because I learned a lot.
Wow. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that sermon and the part that really struck you the most?
So I would say the part that really hit me most was when Pastor Kofi started talking about a call to action. And he started talking about how we should have zeal and passion in everything we do, right? And that really struck me, because I'm young, I'm budding, I should be passionate for something. I should have zeal to want to do something, to achieve something for the Lord. And as Pastor Kofi was talking, he was talking about how, nowadays there's so many distractions, social media, there's so many, you name them, there's so many. But as a young person, I feel like I have to be focused on something. There's so much out there that can turn you to the left or to the right. But being focused and being minded that this is the goal that I want to achieve, having zeal and having passion. And as you're pursuing that passion, as you have zeal, the Lord will also add his fire.
That's right.
And together, that combo, it can't be stopped.
Wow. Was there any verse that he shared? Anything?
Yes.
Just share a little bit about the sermon.
There was a couple verses that I did take down. Let me pull them up.
Sure.
So the first verse I'll start off with was Colossians chapter 3, verse 23. And this is the NLT version. It says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord and not for human masters. And I thought that was really powerful.
What do you understand?
Well, when it says working for the Lord, right? God has given everyone on this planet a talent. He's given something. There's something that he's deposited inside of you. And I believe it's our job as Christians to use those God-given talents to glorify God. I'll give an example. Like you said, serving in the house of the Lord, right? I'm a musician. I play the keyboard. And that is a talent that God has given me. So I have to use that talent to glorify him and also bring others to Christ. And I believe that, music is one of the most powerful things, right? Music influences. Actually, this is something that Pastor Kofi said too. I remember that, but that was in a different sermon. But he said that music touches all three aspects of the human, I guess, body. I will say the soul, the spirit, and the flesh. So your flesh, music, it will give you, you're listening to something. Maybe it will give you chills or give you goosebumps.
Yeah,
that's touching your flesh. Touching your soul, it'll, make you want to move a little bit. And then your spirit, edifying your spirit as you're listening to the music. Maybe God will drop a verse in your mind. Let me go read this verse. And I think that, like I said, God has given everybody a specific talent. So it's our job to use those talents to glorify him. I'll also read Romans chapter 12, verse 6 to 8. Romans chapter 12, verse 6 to 8. And I'll start from verse 4. Romans chapter 12, verse 4. It says, for just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so we in Christ, though many form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. I like this part. Verse 6, we have different gifts according to the grace of each of us. Right. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is to give, then give generously. If it is to lead, then do it diligently. And if it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully. And I thought that was so powerful. I mean, it's amazing what God can do. Like when God gives you talent, it's amazing if you just let go and let him lead.
That's right.
Let him lead you. It's amazing what God can do.
So to someone who feels like they don't have any talent, do you think that they can also, serve in the house of the Lord when someone feels like they don't have any talent? Or you think that everybody has something unique in them that they can offer in the house of God?
Oh, yes. Everyone. I feel like everyone can find something. There is so much. I mean, even like in the house of God, there's so many different moving components that it takes for us to effectively go forward. I mean, you have the choir, you have audio visual, you have the prayer team, you have ushers, there's so many different aspects that you can definitely find something. There is, I believe strongly, there's something for everyone to do. There's something for everyone to do in the house of the Lord.
Which part of the sermon did you say struck you the most?
Yes, I'll say the middle part where Pastor Kofi was talking about we should have zeal and have passion for the Lord, and we should work hard at it. And as we have that passion, we have that zeal, God will also add his fire to it. When
you were sharing earlier, you mentioned that there are so many distractions that come our way. Do you want to expatiate on that, throw more light on that?
I mean, there's so many distractions in the world that will distract you from your Christian faith. And we actually talked about this at a program. Since I'm a senior in high school, I'll be going to college soon. We had something called Senior Transitions, which talked about different things that we'll need to know going into college. And one of the things we talked about was there's so many distractions.
What are some of those practical ones to you, ones that you can relate to?
Yeah, biggest one, I'll say technology is distracting. Social media can be distracting. Sometimes you'll be doing your work, you'll be doing your schoolwork. Oop, you get this text. Oh, let me see what this person is. Let me see. Oh, there's a WhatsApp thing. Let me go and check it out. But I believe that if we're able to minimize distractions, keep our eyes focused on what we need to do, then we'll be better able to make progress. We'll be better able to effectively complete any task that we need to do. Because, there's such thing like doom scrolling is real.
That's right.
When you scroll hours, if you're not careful, you'll spend 24 hours, you won't even know it.
Right. So practically, what measures can someone put in place to ensure that as far as the academic goes, they can be focused? I'm not saying that do away completely with your phone or any other thing that sometimes steals your time, but how can you plan such that you'll be able to focus on your academics? And also when we are in the house of God, so we can also make time for God as well, not only at church, but also our own personal, quiet time. How do we ensure that, what measures can we put in place to ensure we don't get so easily distracted?
Yeah, well, I would say it's definitely a balancing act, right? You have to be able to balance that. Time management is very, very important. So, Bible says there's a time and a season for everything, right? When it is time for you to focus on your work, focus on your academics, maybe you'll put your phone away. You'll put your phone in a completely different room than the one you're working in.
How do you do it?
How do I personally do it?
How do you handle it?
So sometimes, I won't even lie, sometimes it's a struggle for me not to look at my phone. But sometimes I'll have to, I'll give my phone, let my dad have my phone so I can focus on my work, or I'll put it, somewhere else where it's out of sight, out of mind. We hear that quote all the time, out of sight, out of mind. And sometimes we have to put that quote into use.
That's right.
So, putting it away and saying, okay, this is what I have to do. I have to do X, Y, Z. I have this amount of time. Let me focus and get it done.
Yes, that sounds great. And also talking about distractions, sometimes this is just my thought, right? I know sometimes as musicians, we can easily get distracted to maybe especially when we are done with our session, you see people stepping out of, the auditorium to listen to the sound and, have small talks here and there. How do you think as musicians we can, ensure that we are doing better and not being distracted by just what we do? How can musicians ensure that they can be in service without being distracted by the very instruments that we play?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I would say that as musicians, right, we have to discipline ourselves that we are not just there to play the instruments, but we are there to also be a part of the service. And that's something my parents have taught me so much, that playing the instruments is well and good. It's great, right? You're worshiping God. You're leading people into the presence of God. But also be a part of the service, right? Listen to the sermon. Take some small notes. And once you do that, you start to enrich yourself more, right? You start to build yourself more. And as you're doing that, you begin to realize a whole different side of things, that there's more than just, there's so much more to it than just music, right? You begin to understand reading your Bible, understanding the word, what the word says, and then using that and applying it to your musicianship. Because when you have the music and it's backed by the word, that is so powerful. The music backed by the word, that takes you into a whole different realm.
I know you plan on going to college somewhere around August, right? How do you intend to keep the zeal, the fire that you have? How do you intend to keep it such that you not go to college and then you come back a different person?
Yeah.
Right. What are some of the, if you have even reflected on that at all?
Yeah. And this was another thing that we talked about at the senior transition program, that first off, prayer is so important. Yes, you have your parents praying for you, you have the church backing you, but going to college is a time where you have to stand on your own 2 feet. You have to be able to really build yourself in prayer. And secondly, I would say going to college, finding a group of believers, finding a group of like-minded people that want to accomplish the same thing, want to, serve the Lord in the same way that you do. Bible says we shouldn't forsake the gathering of believers, right? So finding that group of people and making sure that, we're praying together, we're fellowshipping together, and we're keeping our fires burning, right? Because, take for example, if I'm going to college, I'm going, it's a new environment. You don't know anybody. Everybody's new there. Everybody's trying to figure stuff out for themselves. So if I find a group of people and I bring my fire and you bring your fire and that person brings their fire and, we begin to fellowship, it starts to spread, right? Fire starts to spread. But the other people, even other people who may not be believers, they'd be like, oh, there's something going over there. Let's go check it out. What's going over there? Let's go see what they're doing. Check it out, and that begins a movement. And so honestly, just fortifying myself in prayer, and then also finding that group of people that on campus that will have the same mindset as I do to serve the Lord.
Awesome. I pray that the Lord would strengthen you to do just that.
Amen.
We definitely would love for you to, go to campus and then come back and also, join the team. So we play together. Do you think that as a musician, do you think that all the musicians have the same passion and zeal?
I feel like everyone's, I guess, measure of passion is different, right?
How so?
So, there are some people, some musicians where they're just coming just to play, just to play. They're not really in tune with the service. They're just coming to play and then go. And then there's musicians who are passionate about what they do, right? There's musicians who, they'll come to service, they'll come on time, they're playing their musician, they're worshiping, they're in tune with the service. And I feel like that's the biggest difference between different musicians, right? Being a musician is not just, like I said, it's not just about the music. It's about being part of something so much bigger than yourself.
How would you be able to help someone who, maybe someone you play with, who you don't really see the same passion, zeal, and, would not show up for rehearsal or even in church and all that? How do you think you can influence such a person if you know someone who may not be playing at the same level as you? How would you encourage the person to really, have the same zeal as yourself?
Well, I will say that first off, we're one church family. We're one body, right? Like I read in the verse, it says that we're all members of the same body. So if I see my brother or my sister struggling, first off, we have to be real with one another, right? We have to be able to connect with one another. I have to be able to reach out, say, hey, my brother, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? What can I do to help you succeed? For example, let's say I'm a musician. I play the keyboard, and there's another brother who also plays the keyboard. And maybe sometimes he's like, I don't know if I'm playing well. I'm not. I don't know. I don't really. You have to be able to reach out to that person, right? Reaching out is so important. You have to be able to reach out and praying for the people is good, right? Prayer is so great, but we also have to be able to connect with one another, right? On that level. Like if you're going through something, if somebody's going through something, reach out and say, how can I help you? How can I be of service to you? And I feel like if we're real with one another on that level, then we start to build each other up.
So having heard Pastor Kofi's message, what really changed in your life? What adjustments have you made having listened to that sermon?
Well, I would say schoolwork, being more focused and more passionate about getting things done regarding like my academics, right? I'm a student, so when I go to school, they'll give us assignments, sometimes I'll see the assignment, oh, this is an easy assignment, I can't wait to do this later. But coming to realize it now, like thinking about that, I should have put more emphasis on that, right? Like Pastor Kofi said, like you said, he talked about being passionate, being zealous, right? If you're like, everyone has a space, I will say a space to be passionate or zealous, right? If you're a student, then your goal is to be passionate and zealous academically. If you work, be passionate and zealous in your workplace, in your job. So for me, I would say what really changed is being more dedicated to like being crazy at my schoolwork, right? My parents will always say that just because the B is there, don't settle for the B. Go for the A. Go for the A+. Don't settle for just mediocrity. I changed some of my study habits. I started studying more, started reading my notes more, and slowly by slowly, the grades started increasing. And by the grace of God, now I'm doing great. I have great grades.
So, what would you say to Pastor Kofi if he's listening to you?
First off, Pastor Kofi, God bless you. God richly bless you. I mean, every time Pastor Kofi is an anointed man of God. Every time he speaks, you can just, you know something is going to change, right? Every time he speaks, just his words, his unction is so powerful. And I really believe that the Holy Spirit has really called him to minister to the world. Also, I would say thank you. Thank you for giving us practical tips. Even, there's sometimes where someone will be preaching like Pastor Kofi or one of the elders will be preaching, and they'll be giving tips and, they won't even realize that they've deposited like something so powerful. Going back and you go back to listen to it and they're like, I'm like, I missed that the first time, but hearing it again, that was powerful. I didn't realize it in the moment, but that was powerful. So Pastor Kofi, God bless you and thank you so much.
And also to the youth out there, someone who is listening to you, based on the sermon that you heard, Are there things that you want to just, share with the person to say, hey, these were things that I took from the message? And I'll be sure to put the link of Pastor Kofi's message in the comments so that someone can also benefit from it. But based on it, what message would you have for a youth out there who may be listening to you?
Yeah. So a message I would say for the youth is that we have been called, right? We're a chosen generation. We've been called to do the work of God, right? And we've been given grace to go and do that, go to live out that calling. We always say the slogan, youth arise and shine, but what does that really mean, right? Arise and shine. It means to stand up. We have a mandate to go out and do something, go out and make change. And shine. We're supposed to emulate the brightness, the light of Christ. So when we say arise and shine, we're not just saying it for saying sake. We're saying it because it's a mandate. We should have like a conviction to go out and go accomplish and do exploits for the Lord. So if you're listening to me, you're youth, I'll say, find something that you are passionate about. Experiment with different things. If you're good with computers, experiment with that. There's so much you can do. So find something that you will have passion for and let the Lord use you. Let the Lord guide you. And as you do that, you'll begin to see so many different things change in your life.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. And to you out there, my brother just talked about faith-fueled passion. If you have passion, any zeal that you have, much as we go about our own work, academics, and what have you, I would encourage you that you also find something in the house of the Lord to do with your passion. And even if not just the house of God, at your workplace, at school, wherever you find yourself, we represent Christ. And as such, we have to be zealous about his calling. We have to live a life worthy of our calling. So everywhere we find ourselves, we represent him. I pray that even as you go to school, the zeal will not die down.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you for making the time. If you like this episode, please don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Until we meet again, God richly bless you.
I just wanna give the sermon. I can't put none of it to work.